Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for this Wednesday, May 30th, finds that there are no major changes in my forecast today versus what I presented back on Tuesday. Looking at temperature and rainfall outlooks this morning, still plenty of heat for about another 7 to 8 days anyway across the middle of the country. Widespread above and much above normal temperatures, at least through the June 6th timeframe, but are still looking at a significant moderation in temperatures by around June 7th and beyond. With regards to a rainfall forecast, pretty extensive area of below normal rainfall in my 6 to 10 day forecast, although that would be modestly below normal for a lot of areas. For the 11 to 15 day time frame, have gone for a little bit wetter forecast today, especially for the southern Corn Belt and areas to the south of there. With regards to the QPF discussion for the 1 to 5 day time frame, I think that this forecast overall is just too wet. Certainly, if the forecast were to verify, this would be very welcome rainfall for the bulk of the Corn Belt, given how hot it has been recently, and given that some areas have had easily below normal rainfall in recent weeks. But I just think that this forecast is too wet. First area that I'll point out would be the area of bigger rains there in northeastern portions of Nebraska and into western portions of Iowa. There is going to be a severe weather threat associated with that rainfall for Friday night, and thus rainfall amounts there will probably be just as heavy as is shown. But as usual, it is the coverage of those rains that I think is grossly overstated by this map. I think that the coverage of half plus and 1 plus inch rains in the Corn Belt overall is overstated as well. So the bottom line, I have no problem with the amount shown in this map really anywhere in the country. It is, again, as always, the coverage of the rainfall that I think is being over illustrated by the map that is shown. For the day 6 to 7 day time frame, there is going to be a rainfall threat developing once again for around June 6th and 7th as we start to see a truly cooler weather pattern setting up. The details of the rainfall forecast for that time frame are very much up in the air. This map would indicate the very beginnings of that time frame. It looks like it's trying to be a blend of a wetter GFS solution and a drier European model solution. More than likely, we will see this forecast change a lot in the days ahead. High temperatures yesterday afternoon, certainly not as warm as it was during the holiday weekend, but still plenty warm. The area that I'm outlining there in red would still have temperatures yesterday for highs in the afternoon running easily 10 to 20 degrees above normal. So again, cooler than it has been in recent days yesterday, but still well above normal for this time of year. Rainfall during the last 18 hours, at least through 1 o'clock Central Time this morning, showed that there were pockets of very good rains across some portion of Minnesota, a pocket of good rain in eastern Iowa, some better rains also in eastern portions of the hard red belt, but again, fairly widely scattered. Did see more significant coverage of better rains in southeastern portions of the nation as the remnants of Alberta moved through that area. There you can see on the radar estimated rainfall, the remnants of Alberta working northward through eastern portions of the mid-south over the last 24 hours. Some nice rains in Minnesota. Certainly as you go further north in Minnesota, that rainfall was quite beneficial. Some decent rains across eastern portions of the hard red belt as well. For the Corn Belt, as usual, scattered areas of good rains. If you got under a stronger storm, you got a very nice amount, but at the same time, rainfall coverage so scattered that big areas of the Corn Belt saw little or nothing. Looking at radar this morning, pretty easy to see the remnants of Alberta. They are located across northwestern portion of Kentucky this morning. Otherwise, other portions of the nation's midsection just seeing widely scattered shower and thundershower activity early on this Wednesday. With regards to what the radar should look like at around noon Central Time today, there you can see the remnants of Alberta working its way northward through the area of the right along the Illinois and Indiana border area. Still looks like that area is going to be the focal point of some solid 3/4 inch to 1 1/4 inch rainfall amounts as the remnants of Alberta work northward. Otherwise, the rest of the Corn Belt just seeing widely scattered rainfall activity at around noon Central Time today. The most significant rainfall threat in the near-term forecast still looks to be coming up for Friday night and into Saturday. This is the European model looking at its surface features as of 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And you can see at that time a fairly significant rainfall event, likely being something that would include quite a bit of severe weather at that time in the far western Corn Belt and into the northern plain states. It is going to be a system that will still be able to produce some severe weather on Saturday, but in general, the system weakening as it moves further eastward for late Friday night and into the day on Saturday. So overall, with regards to that rainfall rainfall system coming up for the Friday, Saturday time frame. This is how I see rainfall amounts setting up with that system. A system that should be producing fairly significant rainfall amounts of more than an inch with fairly good coverage across the northern plains and across a sizable portion of the western and northwestern Corn Belt. Again, some severe weather going to be associated with the system still on Saturday, and that is why we could be seeing a tongue of some pretty good rains working its way into western Iowa and into Missouri at that time as well. Otherwise, the system that, given the fact that it is going to be weakening as it heads eastward, it is going to be producing much more limited rains, much more limited coverage for a big portion of the eastern Corn Belt. Beyond the Friday, Saturday time frame, looks like the June 6th to 7th period would be another time frame to potentially see a more significant rainfall threat for the Corn Belt. Here you're looking at surface features from the various weather models as of 7 o'clock in the morning on June 7th. You can see that the various models, European model, GFS, Canadian model, broad area of rainfall chances from the European ensemble, indicating some rainfall chances with the change towards cooler weather for around the June 7th time frame. It wouldn't be surprising at all to see some severe weather associated with that rainfall threat, and places that would get under or any of those stronger storms would have the potential for some nice rains or even significant rains for around June to 6th to 7th. Again, it is a coverage situation. I see the coverage right now is being slim enough that, again, I did put the bulk of the Corn Belt in modestly below normal rainfall for the 6 to 10 day period. Only areas that would happen to get under a stronger or severe thunderstorm in that time frame likely to be the ones seeing significant rainfall amounts. With regards to the temperature forecast, still seeing a lot of above and even much above normal temperatures in the forecast through at least the opening 5 to 6 days of June across most of the middle of the country. Looking at this high temperature forecast for Friday shows that once again by that time, extensive area of 90 plus degree heat has returned to a big portion of the nation's midsection. A lot of the Corn Belt is going to be cooler today than they have been in a number of days, but heat rebuilding for tomorrow. And then again, by the time we get to Friday, notice extensive 90 to 95 plus degree heat in the western and southern Corn Belt. Wouldn't be surprising at all to see some portions of the southwestern Corn Belt see high temperatures that day at the 100 degree mark, and you can see an extensive area of 100 to 105 plus degree heat for Friday as we head towards the southern plains. Some heat getting into the mid-south that day as well, and the mid-south could also be seeing some 95 to 100 plus degree heat by Saturday. Even as we get towards the middle of next week, for especially southern and southwestern portion of the Corn Belt and areas to the south of there, a very hot air mass. Once again, notice the 90 plus degree heat at that time in southern and southwestern portion of the Corn Belt. Big area of 95 to 100 plus, even 105 plus degree heat at that time in the far southwestern Corn Belt southward into the southern plains. Again, though, longer term weather models in agreement that we are looking at moderating temperatures by the time we get to around June 7th and beyond, as a fully established trough of low pressure looks to be located at that time in eastern portions of the nation, with a ridge of high pressure being pushed well to the west and taking all of the abnormal heat westward along with it. Internationally this morning, no changes in Brazil. Dry season fully underway in northern growing areas of Brazil, but some very nice rains over the next 2 weeks in southern safrinha corn areas of Brazil. That rainfall will be getting started there by the time we get to Friday. Over in Europe and the former Soviet Union, no changes in the forecast versus yesterday. Near to above normal rainfall across a good portion of western and central sections of Europe, while strictly below normal rainfall over the next 2 weeks in Eastern Europe, and especially for the wintergrain areas of the former Soviet Union. For those wintergrain areas, largely nothing in the way of rainfall from today through at least Tuesday, and even rainfall after that for the remainder of the 6 to 10 day period and into the 11 to 15 day time frame, staying quite light in nature. Total rainfall for the 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day periods likely staying under a half inch, again for the wintergrain and summer row crop areas of the former Soviet Union. In the spring grain areas of the former Soviet Union, that map there on the right is not from the middle of winter, but it is from May 27th in some of the spring grain areas of Russia and Kazakhstan. I picked that off of Twitter yesterday afternoon. Low temperatures last night. Note the chilly readings across the spring grain areas. Once again, you can see pockets in the spring grain areas that saw temperatures last night dipping below the freezing mark. Even some places in northwestern Kazakhstan and southern Urals district seeing low temperatures last night getting into the upper 20s. The forecast for the spring grain areas is remaining unchanged. Still significant rainfall over the next 10 days, especially across central and northern portions of the spring grain areas. A lot of cold weather there for another week. Look at the temperature anomalies as we get towards June 2nd. Huge area of temperatures well below normal by that time. Should be seeing several more mornings over at least the next week in which low temperatures in a sizable portion of the spring grain areas of Russia get to around or slightly below the freezing mark. Likely we'll be seeing significant warming taking place for very late in the 6 to 10 day period all across the spring grain areas, but like yesterday, the models are suggesting a return to temperatures fairly easily below normal by at least middle to latter portions of the 11 to 15 day time frame. In China, below normal rainfall pattern looking to be present across the corn and soybean areas of the north of Manchuria, as well as the winter wheat and summer row crop areas of the North China Plain during the next 2 weeks. Clearly, the driest conditions with respect to normal being in the North China Plain. Rainfall will be seen at times for especially the 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day periods in Manchuria. Nothing big though, so overall they're still looking at below normal rainfall for the next 2 weeks. It is still a much improved weather situation for the Canadian prairies. Note the extensive rainfall that is going to be seen for the next 10 days all across the Canadian prairies, with temperatures that are turning cooler by Friday, and you can see widespread temperatures easily below normal for the 6 to 10 day period all across the Canadian prairies. Finishing up this morning for Australia, you can note that over the last 24 hours we did see some rain in some of the eastern wheat growing areas of Australia, mostly quite light, but a few spots there able to pick up as much as a half inch. For the 2 week time frame, near to below normal rainfall in the western growing areas of Australia, while it's mostly below normal rainfall in the eastern growing areas. Note that most of the rain that is shown for both the west and the east will be coming for the second week of the 2 week time frame. That's what I have for weather this morning. Everyone have themselves a great day.